I had always been cautious about late-night errands, but that evening, I had no choice. It was close to midnight, and I was running low on groceries. My local supermarket, a 24-hour chain on the outskirts of town, was my only option. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few scattered cars. The overhead lights flickered occasionally, casting eerie shadows across the pavement. As I parked my car near the entrance, I noticed a man standing a few rows away. He wasn't moving, just standing there, hands in his pockets, head slightly tilted as if watching something. I shrugged it off, probably just someone waiting for a ride. Still, I locked my doors out of habit before heading inside. Inside, the store was eerily quiet, except for the occasional crackling of the intercom. The fluorescent lights cast a pale glow over the nearly empty aisles, giving the place an almost surreal quality. The night shift cashier, a bored-looking teenager with earbuds in, barely acknowledged my presence as I grabbed a basket. The air smelled faintly of cleaning products and stale coffee. I moved quickly, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor as I picked up a few essentials: milk, bread, eggs. My plan was simple: get in, get out. Then, as I turned into the cereal aisle, I froze. He was there, the man from the parking lot.
He wasn't browsing. He wasn't even pretending to shop. He stood near the shelves, his posture relaxed but his gaze fixed on me. No basket, no cart, just him watching. A shiver ran down my spine. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was just lost in thought. But deep down, my instincts were screaming. I avoided eye contact, forcing myself to act normal. I reached for a box of cereal with a slightly trembling hand, trying to suppress the growing unease. As I turned to leave the aisle, I caught a glimpse of his expression. Blank, unreadable, yet somehow deeply unsettling. Heart pounding, I moved to the self-checkout, scanning my groceries as quickly as possible. I could still feel his eyes on me, even though I refused to look back. When I stepped outside, the cold night air hit me, but it wasn't enough to calm my nerves. A faint wind rustled through the nearly empty parking lot, carrying the distant hum of passing traffic. My car was only a few rows away, illuminated by the dim overhead lamps that flickered every few seconds. The lot was mostly deserted, except for my vehicle and a few others near the entrance. Then, my stomach dropped. He was there again, the man from the store. He stood by a black sedan, 2 spaces away from mine, hands in his pockets, unmoving, watching. A wave of unease washed over me. He wasn't checking his phone, he wasn't getting into his car, he was just standing there, waiting. My grip tightened around my keys, the metal digging into my palm as I forced my legs to move. My breath quickened. Every instinct told me to get in the car and leave. Fast. The sound of my footsteps seemed deafening in the stillness. Just a few more steps, almost there. Then, behind me, footsteps. The hairs on my neck stood up. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The footsteps were getting closer, not running, but deliberate, measured. "Excuse me," a voice said. I turned, my pulse hammering in my chest. It was him. "Hey," he said, his voice even and calm. Too calm. "You dropped something." I looked down. There was nothing on the ground. My stomach twisted. I forced a polite smile. "I don't think so." He tilted his head slightly. "You sure?" Something was off. Everything inside me screamed to get in the car and drive away. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned, yanked my door open and got in, locking the doors in one swift motion. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring through the windshield, his face partially obscured by the dim parking lot lights. I started the engine. The hum of the car filled the silence. As I backed out, he finally stepped away, hands still in his pockets, eyes following my movement until I was out of sight. My house was about 15 minutes away. I kept checking my rearview mirror. The road was mostly empty, but every few minutes I saw headlights far behind me. A black sedan. The same one from the parking lot. I tried to stay calm. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe he lived in the same direction. But when I switched lanes, so did he. When I took a random right turn to test my theory, he followed. My hands tightened on the wheel. This wasn't normal. I pulled into my driveway, but I didn't feel safe. I sat in the car, watching the street. The black sedan was nowhere to be seen. Had he finally given up? Or was he still lurking nearby? I hurried inside, locking the door behind me. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. Before I could dial 911, a noise stopped me, a faint rustling. From the back of the house, I turned off the lights, heart pounding. Slowly, I moved toward the kitchen, where a large knife sat on the counter. Then I heard it. The back door handle jiggled. Adrenaline surged through me. I grabbed my pistol from the drawer, my fingers cold and stiff around the grip. I wasn't taking any chances. A shadow moved past the window. Then, a loud bang. The door shook as someone tried to force their way in. "Get the hell out of here," I shouted, aiming toward the noise. For a moment, silence. Then, hurried footsteps. A figure bolted through the backyard, disappearing into the night. I stood there, still gripping the gun, my breath ragged. I didn't sleep that night. The police arrived within minutes, searching the perimeter, but the intruder was long gone. There were signs of forced entry, but nothing was stolen. Nothing was vandalized. Because it wasn't about robbery. It was about me. The officers took my statement, but without security footage or a clear description of the suspect, there was little they could do. "Keep your doors locked," one of them said before leaving. As if I needed the reminder. The next few days were filled with paranoia. I changed my routine, avoided going out late, and installed security cameras. I never saw the black sedan again, but I knew. Somewhere out there, he was still watching. One thing was certain, I'd never go grocery shopping that late again. I had always been careful about where I parked my car at night, but that evening, I was exhausted. I had just finished a long shift at work and needed to grab something from a convenience store before heading home. It was nearly midnight, and the streets were quiet, except for the occasional car passing by. The parking lot was dimly lit, with a few scattered vehicles parked under the flickering streetlights. I pulled into a spot near the entrance, turned off the engine, and exhaled. Just a quick stop, I told myself. I grabbed my wallet and phone before stepping out, scanning my surroundings out of habit. That's when I saw them. A group of 4 young men stood near a dark-colored sedan a few rows away. They looked like they were in their early 20s, dressed in hoodies and jeans. At first, I didn't think much of them, but then I noticed the way they were moving. Cautious, glancing around, whispering to each other. One of them kept looking at a car parked nearby, a sleek black BMW. My instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. I pretended not to notice them as I walked toward the store, but my mind was racing. Were they just hanging out? Or were they up to something? I glanced at them again and saw one of them pulling a small tool out of his pocket. Another one was crouching by the BMW's door handle. This wasn't just a group of friends loitering. They were trying to steal that car. A million thoughts ran through my head. Should I call the police? Should I confront them? My gut told me not to get involved, but my conscience nagged at me. If that were my car, I'd want someone to do something. I reached for my phone and stepped inside the convenience store. The cashier, a guy in his 50s with tired eyes, barely looked up as I entered. I walked to the back, pretending to browse the snacks while keeping an eye on the group through the store window. As I pretended to look at a shelf full of chips, I unlocked my phone and typed in 911. My thumb hovered over the call button. But before I could press it, I saw one of the guys turn his head directly toward me. For a second, I thought he was just glancing around, but then his expression changed. His eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. He nudged one of his friends and said something. Suddenly, all 4 of them were looking at me. I looked away, pretending to be interested in a bag of pretzels, but it was too late. They knew I had seen them. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized my mistake. I had just become a witness. I placed the bag of pretzels back on the shelf and tried to think. Should I still call the police? Should I leave? My car was parked too close to theirs. I would have to walk right past them to get to it. As I moved toward the cashier, I glanced out the window again. The group was still there, but now, one of them was walking toward the store. Panic set in. I didn't know what they would do, but I wasn't about to find out. I quickly paid for a bottle of water and a pack of gum, my hands shaking as I fumbled with my wallet. The door chimed as it opened behind me. The guy who had spotted me stepped inside. He was taller than I expected, with sharp eyes that scanned the store before landing on me. I could feel the weight of his stare as he walked toward the back, pretending to browse. I turned to the cashier. "Hey man, "You ever have trouble with people hanging around outside?" The cashier looked up, his brow furrowing. "Sometimes." "Why?" I swallowed. "I think those guys are trying to steal a car." The cashier's eyes flicked toward the window, then to the guy in the store. He lowered his voice. "You should get out of here." Taking his advice, I grabbed my things and walked toward the exit, keeping my pace steady. I pushed open the door and stepped outside. The night air felt colder now. The other 3 guys were still near the BMW, but they looked up as I walked past. I tried to act casual, but I knew I was in trouble. I could feel their eyes following me. Then, just as I reached my car, I heard footsteps behind me, fast and deliberate. I didn't think, I just acted. I yanked open my car door, jumped in, and slammed it shut. My fingers fumbled with the keys as I tried to start the engine. The sound of footsteps grew louder. The engine roared to life, just as someone yanked on my door handle. I didn't wait. I threw the car into reverse, tires screeching as I backed out of the space. In my rearview mirror, I saw the guy who had followed me take a step back, his face twisted in anger. One of the others pulled something from his pocket, a crowbar. My blood ran cold. I floored the gas. I sped out of the parking lot, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly they ached. My heart pounded in my chest. In my mirror, I saw them running back toward their car. Then the headlights of the sedan flicked on. They were coming after me. I tore down the empty streets, weaving between lanes, my mind racing. They were following me, staying close enough that I could see their faces through the windshield. I needed to lose them. Thinking fast, I took a sudden right turn onto a side street, then another left, hoping to throw them off. The sedan hesitated at the intersection before following. They weren't giving up. I knew I couldn't go home. If they saw where I lived, I'd never feel safe again. Instead, I headed toward the nearest police station. My gas tank was nearly empty, but I pushed the car as fast as it would go. Finally, the red and blue lights of the police station came into view. I swerved into the parking lot, slamming the brakes. The sedan hesitated at the entrance. Then, slowly, it turned and disappeared into the night. I sat in my car, breathing heavily, watching the road where they had vanished. But days turned into weeks and weeks into months, and I never saw them again. No more strange cars outside my home. No more messages. No signs that they were still watching. Either way, I was grateful for the silence. I never parked in that part of town again, and I never looked back.